episode's gonna be a bit different. I wanted to look back on a bit of an anomaly for us, an episode that went crazy viral and shot to over 25 million views, and how that success was an absolute failure. See, the idea of what to do next creatively, how do I make something successful, how do I make this thing go viral, and so on, it's all an interesting thing to think about, and probably a potentially poisonous thing as well. But let's look at this episode. Back in our first year of making Film Riot, we were only 6 months into making the show in November 2009, and it was right around one of those times where everything was going wrong, making it really tough for me to get an episode done while having a full-time job and living almost an hour away from the people I shot the show with. So for this episode, I had no time, and we ended up making this really crappy throwaway episode that we shot and finished in about a day. We put it up with a catchy title, including FX Secrets, The Exorcist, and From Hell in the title, and uploaded without thinking much of it. We fulfilled our commitment and got the episode up. I figured it wouldn't do very well view-wise, but hey, on to the next thing. But then it blew up and took on a life of its own. Something within the YouTube algorithm grabbed on to this one and decided it would be our one truly viral video, because why not? And at that point, we had several episodes we were very proud of, and since we've had plenty more that would have been great to reach an audience like that, but this is the one the universe chose to blanket out to the world. And it was a terrible episode. It's out of focus, overexposed, the effects are not the best, and God, do I hate how it looks. It really would have benefited from better lighting, or any lighting at all, really. Which, speaking of, today's episode is sponsored by SmallRig and their new SmallRig RC220 lights. So before I jump into lessons learned from this, let's take a second to look at these two lights here. We have both the 220D, with the D standing for daylight, and the 220B, which is their bicolor version. Of course, the 220 means that this is a 220 watt light source, and this thing is very bright, but we'll get back to that. The two lights are very similar, with the D being for daylight, the B being for bicolor, like we said, so we'll focus on the bicolor here. On the back, we have our controls. You have two knobs here, one to control your brightness value from 0 to 100%, and this one steps through those values very smoothly. You aren't getting those big jumps like you do with some lights. Then, if we click the knob here, we can shift over to our color temp, and we can adjust from 2700 Kelvin to 6500 Kelvin. And we're getting a solid color rendering here with 95 plus CRI and 96 plus TLCI. And the second knob here controls your effects. You have things like paparazzi, fireworks, lightning, faulty bulb, TV, flash, and so on. And of course, there are plenty of accessories to be used here as well. You have the hyper reflector that comes with the light. It helps boost and focus the light that you are getting, and it's bright too. We took this thing outside to battle the sun, and it did a great job. We had this thing set to only about 60% of its intensity, so it is nice and bright. But you also have plenty of accessories that don't come with the light, like this parabolic softbox and the lantern softbox. But let's put this thing to work. First, we did an interview setup. We have the RC220B with the softbox to diffuse the light here. We also added some additional diffusion in front of that, as we would with any light, just to soften it a little bit more. And now we have this very pleasing soft light on Justin's face here. We also have negative fill on the left side and a kicker in the back, which is the RC220D. And again, this is using that softbox, which I am endlessly fascinated by the different feel you get between hard and soft lights. If we jump between the diffusion on and off here, you can see how much of a difference there is in the feel that we're getting between these two looks. It's always something to consider when setting a scene. Is this harsh? Is this soft? Somewhere in between? You can say a lot about a character or their situation just with that one attribute. Then we have another look at that point here. We have the RC220 in the room acting as a window, first with the softbox on and then without. Of course, we're getting more exposure with the hard light, but it's the character of it that's the most interesting to me. But also, this light can act as the sun, so that's nice too. I love the very cinematic feel that I'm getting from this lantern as well. I'm a big fan of this sort of modifier. You also have the skirt here to help you shape the light more, so you can skirt it off from anything you aren't wanting to cover. Again, you have the daylight and the bicolor versions of this light, solid build, great quality of light, and with a bunch of useful accessories. So if you are looking for a new light to add to your arsenal, definitely give this one a look in the notes below.
Logo.
So we made an episode we weren't proud of. We put put it out hoping it would fly under the radar, and because the universe hates us, it ended up being our most viral video to date, and it didn't help us at all. We didn't see a spike in subscribers, and we weren't even in a position to capitalize on it and ride that wave if we did. So that one magical window opened up to us, and it was completely wasted. It bothers me to this day, and it was a great lesson in the you never know of it all. Had I been able to give it the time and attention that I should have, maybe it would have been different, but I didn't, and it wasn't. For me, the lesson is to not let your guard down. Find a way to push with every single thing that you do, because you never know who will see it, if it will take off, and so on. So if I could go back, the advice I would have given myself then would have been to just take a week off. Give it more time and do it right. But that does make me think about something else that does pop into my head a lot. What do you make next? What do you focus your attention on? Should we try to go viral? Should we try to create for clicks? And for me, that answer has always been no. We always try to make everything we do very clickable, sure, but we don't only do it for the views. For me, that is death. There's no point in creating if I'm just doing that for clicks. And we have fallen into that trap before, and every time we do, we're miserable with what we create. And often we'll hear things from people like we should just stick to VFX on our channel, or we should just do more things based on pop culture, which we do both of those things when we're interested. But for me, I'd rather make what excites us regardless of view count, because you never really know. There's times where we put out something that we think is going to do great and it does terrible. Others where we think it will get no views and it does great. It's really difficult, almost impossible at times, to fully predict. I mean, if you're a channel doing 1 million views per episode, or if you're Ryan Reynolds announcing that Wolverine is returning, it's pretty easy to guess the viral chances on that. But for the rest of us, it's a shoulder shrug and crossed fingers. Even if you look at my short film Ghost House, which now has over 3 million views, we released that one in 2016 and it did okay, but then 2 years later, it suddenly took off and racked up millions of views. So sometimes it's just delayed, which has actually been the case with pretty much all my short films, including Ballistic. The other and most important negative of chasing popularity as an artist is that you're chasing what you think others want from you. You're trying to be what someone behind the screen wants you to be instead of being the authentic you. That's when you get copycats and things that feel soulless. And we've done that too. You make something you think that will be popular, but then someone else beats you to the release, and it's basically what you did in the same way that you did it because you were both chasing clicks. But if you were to do that same thing authentically because you were passionate about it, you will do it differently. It'll be uniquely you, and it will stand on its own even if others do something similar. I try to remind myself of these lessons as much as possible, even now as I pitch features. You write a script and you take it out, and once that script's done, you got to decide what to move on to next. But how do you choose that next thing? If you're pitching features, you want someone to buy it. You are essentially making a product for purchase. But the tough part is this is also art, your art. It's who you are, it's your passion. So rolling those two things into one pie is really difficult, but not impossible. The trick for me has been making sure that I'm truly passionate about whatever it is I do next. So when I see the things that studios are looking for, or I can tell what will be popular next, the first thing I do is examine if that thing is for me. Does it excite me creatively? Do I have an idea I'm passionate about that I can marry the business side to? If the answer is no, I move on to the next thing. And this just keeps me sane, because in the world of film or any creative medium, the odds of massive success are minuscule. So I would rather fail with what I love than fail with what I think someone else will. It helps me sleep at night. Anyway, thanks for listening. I know this was a weird episode for us, but it's been something that's on my mind and I wanted to share with all of you. But that is it for today. Links to everything, including the terrible episode, in the notes below. And until next time, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.